If you want to be a pen tester or a red teamer, you have to know how to pivot through a network like a hacker. One of the easiest ways to do that is with SSH Dynamic Port Forwarding, if you know how to use it. So in this video, I'll explain what Dynamic Port Forwarding is, we'll break down its components, I'll show you how it's used, and then we'll go over some demos. And once we're done, you'll be pivoting with SSH like a pro. Let's go. First off, if you don't know what the word pivoting means, then no problem, that's why I'm here. Pivoting means using one compromised machine as a stepping stone to reach other machines you normally could not access. Now, we don't have time to go into what subnets are in this video, but fortunately we don't have to. All you need to understand for pivoting to make sense is that for computers to talk to each other, they must both be on the same subnet. Host A is on subnet 1, and hosts C and D are on subnet 2. Therefore, host A cannot talk to hosts C and D because their subnets do not match. However, host B is on both subnets 1 and 2, and so if we're on host A and we happen to get into host B, we can pivot from host B to hosts C and D. This is the easiest example of pivoting. Hackers do this all the time. When hackers gain a foothold on one machine in a target network, they will pivot from that one machine, moving laterally or sideways across the network to other machines. Now, how do hackers pivot with SSH-D specifically? Well, the SSH command with the -D option is for Dynamic Port Forwarding. It's dynamic because you can send your data to any port residing on the destination machine, hence the word dynamic. Remember though, these are software ports, not physical ports. Now again, how does this work? Well, to understand dynamic port forwarding with SSH, we have to understand three primary components. The SSH-D command, which creates the tunnel, the proxychains redirector, and the SOX protocol. For instance, you have host A and host B. The SSH-D command creates the tunnel between the two hosts. Proxychains is the funnel that forces data into the SSH pipe, and SOX is the protocol or language that the two computers use to communicate forwarding instructions, such as where to send the data once it reaches the intermediary host, which is host B in this picture. So SSH-D creates the tunnel, proxychains forces programs to use it, and SOX tells the proxy where to send the traffic. Put another way, think of it like stepping into a teleportation machine in a sci-fi movie. The teleporter is the SSH-D command. Proxychains is the security guard that tells you when it's safe to step into the teleporter. And SOX is the teleporter operator that controls whether you are transported to your house or to the office where you work. Now that you know how dynamic port forwarding works and its three primary components, let me show you how to set it up, and then we'll do some live examples. So the first thing we need to do is see where our proxychains configuration file is, because we'll need the port number from that. So we'll do ls etc, we'll pipe that to grep, and then we will type the term proxy star, hit enter. It tells us we have a proxychains4.conf configuration file. So let's open that configuration file now and edit it. Proxy, forgot the etc part, etc proxy. It's asking for a password because we did sudo. Now, we'll go to the bottom here. You see this line? It says SOX4 127.0.0.1 9050. This is the port number that we need to be aware of. So it looks like we have 9050, so we are going to use port 9050 to build our tunnel with the SSH-D command. I'll show you that in a minute. So we'll get out of this by holding down Shift and hitting ZQ. Let's clear our screen, and then we'll build the tunnel here. SSH-uppercase D. We'll put in that port number, 9050. And then we'll do the SSH login vero at host-b, hit enter. It asks us for the passphrase, and then you see it logged us into host B with SSH. So this means that our dynamic port forwarding tunnel is built. Now let's go to another tab so we can type in some commands here. Now we want to verify that the SOCKS proxy or the SSH tunnel is actually up and listening. So we're going to do socket statistics -T for TCP sockets, L to show listening sockets, P because we want to see the process that's utilizing the socket, and N because we don't want to resolve host names, we just want to show the IP address. And then we're going to pipe that to grep 9050. We'll hit enter. You can see right here it's listening 127.0.0.1 9050. So we'll clear that. Now we are going to go to our target machine, which is host C. So we're here on host A. We just set up the tunnel on host B, and we're trying to get to host C over here. Now we're on host C. We're going to go into the web folder, and you can see in here I have an index.html file. So let's clear our screen. Now we're going to start a Python server, quick little Python server, -m for module, http://server.server 80, port 80, and we're going to bind it to this IP address. And then we'll hit enter, and it'll say serving HTTP on 10.1.1.3 port 80. Then we'll go back. So again, this is host C, Charlie, and then we'll go back to host A. Now let's try to grab that index.html without using our SSH-D tunnel. So we'll go curl, not that, HTTP 10.1.1.3, and then we'll go index.html. And you can see right there, it just hangs. It's not getting anywhere. It doesn't know where to go because host Charlie, host C is on a different subnet than host A, which is the computer we're on right now. So we'll stop this. Now let's run the same command again, except this time we will type the proxychains command in front of it, which will force the data into the SSH proxy tunnel we've created. And then we'll hit enter. You can see right here that it seemed to have worked. Here we go. Here's index.html, doctype HTML, title SSH Dynamic Port Forwarding Test. Hi ASAP fans, I am host C. Okay, pretty cool. Let's clear that. Now what if we want to do that with a regular browser? We'll go up here, we'll go to Firefox, open that up, HTTP 10.1.1.3 index.html. We'll hit enter, and nothing is really happening. Okay, well let's stop that for a second. We'll go back here. This time let's open Firefox with the proxychains command in front of it. Firefox. And now we will type HTTP 10.1.1.3 index.html. And there it is. Hi ASAP fans, I am host C. Pretty awesome. When we opened Firefox by itself, we could not get to it, but when we opened it with proxychains, forcing the data through the SSH proxy tunnel, it worked. Now, what if we just try to SSH again from host A to host C without using the SOCKS SSH-D tunnel? So let's go back here. We'll do SSH vero at host C, or no, let's do the actual IP 10.1.1.3. and it's hanging up and it's not doing anything. So let's stop that. This time we'll run the same command again, except we will put the proxychains command in front of it, and then we'll hit enter. And it's asking me for the passphrase. That's a good sign. And there we are, host C right at the bottom. So when we use proxychains, we could get from host A to host C. All right, so let's recap. Dynamic port forwarding with SSH is one of the easiest ways that hackers will pivot through a network. The SSH-D command creates a SOCKS proxy tunnel to another machine. Proxychains forces applications on our system to send their data through that tunnel. And the SOCKS protocol tells the proxy where to send that data once it reaches the intermediate host. Put those three pieces together, and suddenly your machine can access networks that were previously unreachable. This is a technique that pentesters and red teamers use all the time when moving laterally through a compromised environment. If you understand this concept, you've unlocked one of the most useful pivoting techniques in cybersecurity. Now, let me stop for a moment and talk about industry certifications. It's a bit of a contentious subject in the industry because they're expensive, they take time to study for, and sometimes some of the certifications are questionable in their usefulness. So what are my thoughts as somebody who's been in the industry for 15 years? Should you get them or not? Should you focus on them? Well, yes and no. I have my CCNA and my Practical Network Penetration Tester certification. Those are just two of a number that I have, and I loved them. I thought the certification courses were great. However, sometimes a lot of them can be pump and dump. You study for the test, you memorize the material, you test out, you get the certification, and then you completely forget everything that you just learned. That's why some people are unsatisfied with industry certifications. The reality is that industry certifications are useful to get you in the door. They're sometimes useful to get you past HR, but after you get past HR, you still have to prove your worth to the hiring manager and your coworkers you work alongside. So my advice to anybody who's new to the industry, get certifications if you want them, but try to focus on the ones that use a lot of labs and have a lot of practical applications. The ones that you really just kind of study the material and then regurgitate that material onto the test, try to avoid those. You're not going to remember as much material from those. Those also tend to have less useful material, but the ones that really have hands-on labs like the CCNA, like my PNPT, and a number of others that are out there, I felt those are really good. I feel those are really worth it. The techniques and the knowledge that you learn under those circumstances tends to stick around a lot longer. So again, focus on certification courses that give you practical, hands-on practice with the technology through labs or however else they do it. So that's it for now. If you have any questions or anything, go ahead and leave them in the comments. And thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.